I just go from like 0 to 100, I think. And it's just so frustrating for me. Like I said, I'll have regret almost instantly afterwards. And then I've apologized to my children many times. Hopefully it's not falling on deaf ears at this point. It's not like I'm daily having to apologize to my kids. I'm just saying, like, there are many moments where I've had a very poor choice of words or overreaction to something that was really minor. And then, have that, like, oh yeah, that was dumb. What'd you do that for? And then you go and you talk to your kid about it and apologize. And I think at least I'm getting that part right. Hello there, ladies and gentlemen. Coach Chris Wilson here today on the Strong by Design podcast. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for finding this program and for listening in. I think this particular episode will resonate with many of you parents out there. This is something that I've wanted to talk about for a while and wasn't quite sure what direction I wanted to go with it, but I think if I just kind of speak openly and honestly and from the heart today, that'll probably help someone on the other end, but it'll most certainly help me because God knows I need some help in this area of my life. So again, thank you for finding the Strong by Design podcast and for listening over the years, for sharing it with friends and family. That's how we grow, and we appreciate every single download that we get. And it's just great to have been part of this show since 2018, and here we are, just creeping up on 400 official episodes. We're actually technically over 400 if you count some of the bonus episodes we've thrown in over the years, but officially, by episode number, we are creeping up on 400, and it's been a wild ride and so many moving, powerful conversations that we've had that I've been a part of, and people that I've been able to speak with that if we didn't have the podcast, that conversation most likely wouldn't have happened. So what a great opportunity this is. So today's conversation, or prologue, if you will, from me, is certainly a very sensitive area, tough topic to talk about, I think, for a lot of us, if we're being honest. I know there's some probably amazing parents on the other side of this microphone that maybe don't struggle in this area, but I certainly 100% struggled in this area. My wife would agree. And no, I mean, I'm just being real. It's an area of struggle I've had from my own childhood, I believe. And that's where I want to kind of start with this conversation, is just touching on a little bit of my own childhood, reflecting a little bit about maybe where some of this reaction or anger, deep-seated anger comes from. And it's a learned behavior, I think, right? How we handle our emotions, how we deal with things in the moment. Certainly a learned behavior. And I had two very different parents growing up. I'm the youngest of three boys. My older brothers, identical twins, 5 years older than me. And my dad was, he had a lot of good qualities, but my dad, he was pretty rough, could be, with us. He would yell. He was a yeller. He was very loud. If my dad was in a room, you most certainly heard his voice, probably where I get that from. My wife would agree with that statement. So my dad, very loud, gregarious, big personality, kind of life of the party kind of guy. I think people either loved him or hated him in some ways, whether they knew him well or not. My mom, on the other hand, was the sweetest person you ever met. Non-judgmental, always gave people the benefit of the doubt, was far more shy and soft-spoken. Very similar, actually, in a lot of ways to my marriage. I'm the kind of the loud, outgoing, you know, just that's my personality. And my wife, in a lot of ways, the opposite. If she knows you, she's not that way. But to a lot of people, if she doesn't know you, she is more reserved, more quiet, shy, soft-spoken. So, but my mom, growing up, was a source of strength for me and my brothers, and just she was so kind and gentle and nurturing and all those things that we think of when we think of our mom. She had it all. She had a great smile. She was always present. She was always part of our lives, and really balanced out my dad's abrasiveness. I think that's a word that really can describe me pretty well in some settings, in some occasions, and just things that come to memory. But so I'm so thankful and grateful for my mother and my older brothers, who in a lot of ways were kind of like a second set of parents for me, because they were 5 years older. So there's a lot I learned from them to help offset all that kind of, I don't know what you, just from my dad, I certainly got that kind of reactive trait to other people, it being very much emotionally volatile, and not hiding my emotions at all. Like some people bottle things up and keep quiet about them, and you kind of can't read them. You can't tell if they're happy or sad or pissed off or whatever. I mean, not me. Like no one's ever asked me like, how are you feeling? I mean, it was always pretty evident because I just was verbal about it, or you could see it in my body language, the way I responded. And my dad was very much the same way. He never hid, I don't think, from whatever emotions he was feeling. It was just, you were just pummeled with his emotions. And yeah, so I feel like that's how I am in a lot of ways. I mean, little things would just set my dad off. He'd get so angry and so upset and be loud and either be verbally or physically abusive. Punishments were a regular thing, taking things away from us, having control over me, my brothers, and my mother. My dad was so much a disciplinarian and so tough sometimes. He would punish my mother, if that doesn't even make sense to some people. She's an adult. But my dad was the oldest of four boys. He was the oldest of four. And so I think he had a lot of responsibility from a young age. He was also a Marine, and he was an alcoholic his whole life. And I think that was a perfect storm of all the, I don't know, perfect storm of creating a very tough, loud, reactive type of person. So a lot of us, I think, are scarred from things in our childhood. Things that really sit with us, things that, were maybe traumatic in some way. I had a lot of those moments as a kid. Luckily, I had my brothers and my mother as a shield to a lot of these things, these kind of the verbal and emotional and physical abuse from my father, which, was over a 13-year period, because by the time I was 13, my brothers were 18, seniors in high school. I was in 7th grade. my my family broke up, if you will. It was a very interesting, odd way of separation. First, my brother ran away to go live with his girlfriend's family. They were just wonderful people, and they let my brother actually live with them for many months. He lived with them. Next was my mother a few months later. This would have been January of 1989. And then the next month, my brother Dave, I remember him packing a bag and running down the street up to a neighbor's house. I remember looking out my window, I think in my bedroom, and going like, oh my gosh, it's just me and my dad now. I lasted a couple more months as my mom was seeking somewhere for us to live so that I could go and live with her. At this point, it was a very odd period, but my mom finally had the nerve after 20 years of being with my dad to up and leave. And so it wasn't like all at once. It was like we all kind of left in our own time frame. And so why am I sharing that with you? Well, I think that helps get into my psyche a little bit and to understand how powerful those 13 years were. Obviously, being part of a family with lots of love, but also lots of kind of anger. So both. My dad, he could show you love and then smack you across the face a minute later. When you're a lifelong alcoholic, you don't do things logically. You don't do things, most things you're not doing sober. Things that just weren't ordinary, didn't make sense. He'd get angry with you repeatedly over the same thing that he had already gotten angry with you about, like rehashing it. I think that's a common thing for people who are intoxicated kind of every day, all day. They like play things back over in their mind, and then you go through the same episode almost like it didn't happen. And so my knee-jerk response to things sometimes is very much like my father. And that's troubling for me. I've struggled with that my whole life since I was a kid. So am I scarred? 100%. Have I made it? Have I forgiven my father? Have I moved on? Yes. My dad died many years ago. He died in 2005. So we're looking at almost 20 years since my dad's been gone. He died very young. He was 60. He was born in 43, so he's 62 years old when he died, and that's pretty young. When you pretty much died from not taking care of himself, lifelong drinker, smoker, was medicated, depressed, all of those things, I think, created an early death for him. But yeah, so I'm certainly scarred from that, and I did a lot of like talking about this and counseling and stuff when I was younger. I almost think, geez, at this stage of my life, 48 going on 49 years old, my own marriage, my own children, it's like, geez, some counseling would probably do me good just to be able to kind of continue to talk through these things, and maybe for the people in my life, my wife, my children, to better understand where I'm coming from and why I am the way I am. But that's why we all need to kind of reflect a little bit about this and either write it in a diary or talk with somebody that we trust about these emotions and stuff. Again, this is nothing new. I've had this conversation before with family members, with friends. I've never held back from my upbringing, my childhood, and some crazy stories, and just some really just oddball things that I was, part of as a child. But I think it all has led to my overreaction to things in my life. And I think ultimately what it is, it's that, as my dad used to say, and it's so funny because it was like total hypocrisy. He would say something about like making mountains out of molehills or whatever. Mountains out of molehills. So what does that expression mean? Making a mountain out of a molehill. It means making something way bigger, exaggerating something. Making a mountain out of a molehill, making a huge deal out of something that's really quite minor. And I think my dad gets an A+ in that category, and I think I do too. I make such a big deal and like overreact to things that are so minuscule that really don't matter. Like my kid spilling water on the carpet or something, or somebody dropping something, or the dog doing something, or just these crazy reactions. My wife hates it. I can't blame her. I think my mom was a bit jumpy in that regard too, but probably because of my father, made us all kind of jumpy. And so we would overreact and like get really concerned about stuff that wasn't really a big deal. So it's unfortunately passed on to me. So I do a really lousy job of handling those moments. I'd give myself a failing grade in that category. Now, I've made some progress over the years. There's some times where I handle it better than others. I'm trying to think if something comes to mind here where I did handle it better, where I didn't yell or overreact to something that maybe I ordinarily would. I don't know. There's so many times where I say something, or I'm loud, or I react, and then I instantly regret it, or I know like that was too much. I went too much there. I went over the line there. So I guess the awareness is good, and being apologetic about it is good. Seeing the opportunity to go and acknowledge that you did something out of line or went too far, and letting your spouse or letting your child know that you're sorry or that you overreacted. That's good, but I want to get to the point where the overreaction doesn't happen at all, and I'm not yelling, or I'm not loud, or I'm not irate. The other thing about it is, which is so kind of silly almost in a way, is that so many of these things, as I said, making mountains out of molehills or making a big deal out of something minor, is that I wouldn't even maybe remember what that issue was the next day. Like, what was it that got me so worked up? Like, if you can't recall, then it really was not worth your all that energy, all that all of that emotion over something so so minor. So I think that's what's so puzzling to me as I like try to better understand myself as I get older. It's like, why? But it's like, I know why. I know it's kind of how I was raised. It's what I grew up with. It's what I was exposed to. It's what I saw all the time, every day, for 13 years of my childhood. And then at that point, when my parents did divorce, I was just with my mother and who would become my stepfather, Eric. And, I could like breathe. I didn't have to worry about every little mistake that I made, that I was going to get in trouble or yelled at or punished or abused in some way. Life in like the end of junior high and high school was fantastic. I mean, it was easy. It was fun. I was, and I don't know, I was just in a much better place. And the good thing was I was part of a lot of things. I was part of, sports, and I had a lot of friends, and I was part of performing groups and singing things and doing sketches and acting and I was part of all of those things. And I think all of that really helped me. Because I was always focused on all these other things going on in my life. I didn't have a lot of time to dwell on all of those not so great things that had taken place. But I think I was also so grateful to kind of be out of that environment in a house where, there wasn't yelling going on all the time or people getting whacked or, it was just it was certainly a much easier time. And man, my mind's racing, just kind of thinking about that time period, that like the summer between 7th and 8th grade. I think that's when it was, right? Was it that summer? I think so. I think that was the summer. Yeah, summer of '89. Yeah. So don't sweat the small stuff, huh? Don't sweat the small stuff, or making mountains out of molehills. Kind of the same deal. Like the small stuff eats us. See, I feel like I handle the big stuff better. Like if it's a big thing, a big deal, something that, that was like a scary moment or something. I know okay, here's a great example. Let me give you an example of what I'm trying to say here, because I'm doing a lousy job of it. I understand. Here's a big thing that didn't get my dad pissed off and yelling at us. My brothers and I one day were in the backyard. It must have been I don't know what day was this, because our parents were not home. I think my mom was probably working. She worked in the restaurant business, and my dad must have just been out. I'm guessing. I don't know. We were in the backyard playing with a ball that the cover had come off of it. So it was all like the twine like wrapped around. It was like the size of a softball. We're kind of goofing, playing with it. And then, I don't know if it was me or somebody else. I was kind of the annoying little brother at this point. But somebody mentioned something about like burning this ball. Like maybe we should like try and light it on fire. I remember running in. I don't know if I got matches and lighter fluid, or one or both or what, but I do recall flashes of this and being involved in the trying to light this thing on fire. This is what kids do, right? At the time I don't know how old I was, 9, 10 maybe ish. So my brothers would have been about 14, 15. And there was some neighborhood kids with us as well. And so we're like probably squirting this thing with lighter fluid and trying to light this ball on fire. Why? I have no idea. Idiot kids. That's why. And I don't think we had a lot of success. I don't know if it was a little watery or, waterlogged or what. It was kind of wet and it wasn't really burning maybe. And we played with it for a little while. And then I think we like kind of tossed it back into what was kind of woods on the side of our house, separating our house and our neighbor's house, the Hazels. But it wasn't so much woods. It was kind of like a bamboo-y, like reeds that grow with the little kind of dog tails at the top. That was kind of our separator between our properties. It was pretty big. It was probably about good 20 feet in width, and it was about the length of our whole backyard. This kind of like reeds, like these thin kind of bamboo-y shoots. And that's where we threw this ball that we had been trying to light on fire into. And then Minutes go by, we're probably still playing and doing stuff, and we see some smoke coming up out of this area. And we all start freaking out because now there's fire. And like, I remember my brother getting the garden hose and trying to put this fire out, trying to protect the sandbox. And eventually the flames were just giant. I mean, I'm talking like 25, 30, 40-foot flames. Like, this whole section became an inferno. It was crazy big. And we just went like running to the neighbor's house. By this time, there were neighbors like outside looking at these flames and smoke. And the fire department had to come and put all of this fire out. And my parents were both informed somehow, some way, right? And were called to come home. And I remember my dad, maybe this was a school day that we were all home like early from. That's why no one was home, maybe. I remember my dad being more concerned about our safety and that we were okay than like, we thought we were done for. We thought, this is it. This is our death. He's going to come home and he's going to kill us. He'll yell at us, smack us around, and then we're dead. He's going to just choke us out. But he didn't. And I was always bothered or perplexed. There was always part of me that was like, wow, I really didn't see him having that response. Maybe it was like a sobering, like, holy crap, my kids could have like killed themselves moment. And luckily no one's hurt. My kids, the neighborhood kids, no one was hurt. And it was just this little section that kind of burnt down and was rectified by the fire department. So anyway, that's a big issue. That's like something that, like, if that happened, I would have a similar response. I'd be way more concerned about the safety of the people involved, that no one was hurt. And we'd probably talk very seriously about why this happened and how that can't happen again. But for me, like, punishment, I don't know if punishment really solves that type of problem there. You know, that's more of like, I think everybody was scared crapless. And that was a good learning moment for us all. You know, all of us kids that are pyros out there. But the little things just get me. And it's so frustrating and like troubling because I know that they do. It's like in the moment, as I'm overreacting to something, there's a voice in my head saying, you're overreacting to this. As I'm overreacting, like I can't stop it. Does anyone else feel like that? It's really bothersome. So what does that look like? Like yelling, like raising your voice. First of all, I have a kind of a loud, booming voice. I don't know if you can tell, but I can be loud. I'm a baseball coach. I've been doing that for 7 years, and people tell me all the time, they're like, dude, I can hear you from like 2 fields over. Now, I'm not yelling great. I'm like just barking like coaches bark at the kids. A lot of it's positive and stuff, but my voice carries and it's pretty loud and full. Maybe it was all that singing and chorus growing up or something. I don't know. I do like to sing. But number 2, it's also the words that we use. So it's our tone, right? And it's what we're saying. And I have a tendency to be kind of harsh. And I used the word abrasive earlier. Like, I just go from like 0 to 100, I think. And it's just so frustrating for me. And then like I said, I'll have regret almost instantly afterwards. And then I've apologized to my children many times. Hopefully it's not falling on deaf ears at this point. It's not like I'm daily having to apologize to my kids. I'm just saying, like, there are many moments where I've had a very poor choice of words or overreaction to something that was really minor. And then, have that like, oh yeah, that was dumb. What'd you do that for? And then you go and you talk to your kid about it and apologize. And I think at least I'm getting that part right. I'm like atoning for that kind of sinful. I don't know if sinful is a good way of looking at it. It is kind of sinful in a way, I'm sure, but just this anger. Why, my wife will look at me and say, "Why are you so angry? Why are you so angry about that?" And she's right. Like, why am I so angry about that? It's not even like I'm angry. It's just like I'm overreacting. I'm seeming like I'm really angry, but I mean, I can be 100% back to normal fine in 5 or 10 minutes. But now she's buzzing for hours afterwards because of my anger. Like, my anger now charged her up negatively, and she can't drop it like I can. I can drop it. And I guess that's a blessing and a curse. I can like go from 0 to 100 back to 0. And I'm okay. But other people aren't. And that's really, I think, at the core of this, right? It's like, it's not about me. I gotta really be thinking about everyone else. Like, how is this helping or hurting them? And how is this serving me? How is this serving them? And is there a time and a place for like being loud or yelling at a kid? 100%, dude. If your kid's about to go out into the road and they didn't look both ways, or you see a car coming, you better be yelling. You better be at the top of your lungs and scaring them to death to not walk out in the street. So yes, there is a time and a place for that. But, as I've said, I'm doing that when I don't need to be doing it for stuff that's so minor. It doesn't make any sense. So what are some of the positive ways that I could communicate my anger or my frustration? That's the goal. That's what we're all, I think, seeking, is like, what are the positive things that we could be doing to overcome these bad moments? And I think number one for me is to just separate myself and maybe just, walk away, count to 10 kind of thing. I know it sounds silly. It sounds really simple, but if it's complicated, it ain't going to work. So what's the simplest thing you could do in a moment where you feel like, oh my gosh, I've been set off. Here's my knee-jerk reaction to something. Here comes that anger, like, building up. I think you instantly need to like separate and like maybe get out of that environment as quickly as possible, and just give yourself that like 10, 30 or 30 seconds or something just to be away from it. Now, if it's something, again, like I remember like stupid stuff, throwing the garbage out in the wrong garbage, like food garbage in like the downstairs garbage, not the kitchen garbage, and being like yelled at for that, or spilling something on the carpet or on the table or something. And like, now those are things that we kind of have to respond to swiftly in order to act on them, especially like spilling, right? If your kid knocks something over and it's like leaking out, like, you have to act in the moment, but you have to act with not in anger, but just in you have to just be responding to, like, okay, do I need a towel in this moment? What do I need here? What's going to resolve this? And not be so quick to like point a finger or to make them feel bad for their mistakes. It's not like they intentionally did it. It's called an accident, right? They knocked something over. Of course, kids have a way of doing things because they're not paying attention, and they're all wacky and crazy, or just in their own universe. But again, it's such a, like, your sofa, who cares if it has a stain on it, or the floor or whatever. It's like, it's at the end of the day, it's It's not a big deal at all. It's just I make such a big deal out of these stupid, petty things. Oh, I got an alarm going off. Don't worry. I hit stop. So I think breathe, get away, give yourself 10, 20, 30 seconds if you can. And I think that can be a really big help. I think also, if you're married, and I imagine a lot of the people on the other side of this listening, if this is based on like this episode is based on yelling at your kids, so there's a significant other most likely in your life, is like getting them on board with this struggle, and having discussed this with them privately, just the two of you, without maybe the kids being around, and like being on the same page with it. Because like my wife said before, like we're not in competition, or whatever, like with parenting. Like we're a team. We're like together. So we need to be together on everything, or at least try to be. And like she's so much better. Like, I mean, she has her moments too. Kids push your buttons and you're maxed out and it's been a long day, tough day, you're tired, all this stuff, and you can overreact. But I'm far worse at this, certainly than she is. And she'll handle a lot of this stuff much better than I will. And it's like, I should be learning from her, and then she should be like kind of coaching me or cueing me in these moments or something. Like if a kid knocks something over, kind of give me a look like, all right, honey, go grab a towel so we can get this cleaned up. And I know I keep using the same thing as an example, but I'm just trying to, or like kids cleaning up after themselves or putting something away. Like what drives my wife nuts is she busts her butt doing laundry for the whole house, and all she needs from us, my daughter, my son, and myself, is to put our clothes away. So they're like already even like folded and ready to go in a basket. And it gets her like, she has like daggers in her eyes looking at me to like put my clothes away. And I get it. It's like, I know better after all these years. What makes my wife happy is like, there's no pile of clothes to put away. It's a clean pile of clothes, mind you, like sitting in a basket or stacked on a dresser or on the sofa next to the dresser or something, and it's like it'll make her happy if I just put these away, and oftentimes it's like come down to the point where there's like a stack of like a week or two of like laundry, and it's like, I know she's irritated that it's there, and she'll say something about it, and I'm like, damn it, I missed my opportunity. I should just put the stuff away without her having to say it. But it's like, again, she's not overreacting. She's just letting me know she's dissatisfied. She's like, she'll have some kind of like sarcastic comment or something to like put it away. So again, she does much better. She gets a much higher grade than I do for these types of things. Now, there are other things that, again, I feel are warranted at barking or yelling at your kids. Sometimes, the elephants will run amok if the bull elephants aren't around. What do I mean by that? It's like Lord of the Flies sometimes with children. If there's no authority figure around, we have a house that like a lot of kids congregate at. Sometimes I'll go out in my garage. There'll be like 8, 9 kids in my garage. Some of whom I know, some of whom I don't. They're like neighborhood. My son's having friends over. My daughter has friends over. It's like, oh my gosh. If there's no parent around, chaos will ensue because it's a bunch of kids making up their own rules on stuff. There'll be garbage everywhere. There'll be stuff all over in the yard and in the driveway and in the street. And it's like chaos. And I don't like it. I don't like it because I end up having to pick this crap up, throw stuff out in the garbage and put balls back on the ball rack and, organize the garage back. So sometimes I bark in those moments, and my son, I know he doesn't like it. But at the same time, I feel like going out there and being like, "Hey guys, it's Mr. Nice Guy, Mr. Chris." And I feel like I'm not going to get much of a reaction. I feel like I have been nice before, and you get walked on. You get walked over by these kids. And so I feel like sometimes a lion must roar, or an elephant must like frickin' raise his trunk up and make a loud noise and blow his horn and let everybody know, hey, get this crap back in order. What are you guys doing? There's garbage everywhere. This is not your house. This is my house. I don't want to have to put all this stuff away, so you guys do it. And I'll get a little bit aggressive there, a little bit barky, a little bit loud. But again, I'm not being like abusive to anybody. I'm just letting them know I'm in charge and they need to listen and take direction. Anyway, I think there's times where I've done it well, and there's times where I've probably stepped over the line or been a little bit overboard with it, and my wife will let me know. So I can work on that too, for sure. This is cathartic, by the way. This is helpful. I don't know if it's helping you. It's helping me talk through my feelings, my reaction to a lot of this stuff. But maybe it's giving you some opportunity to reflect yourself and determine moments with your kids where you've maybe overstepped or you've done it right. And we should probably praise ourselves or give ourselves a little pat on the back when we do get it right. As like, see, I can do it right. I just did, and feel good about that. And I've had a few of those, but I've had an overwhelming number of times where I feel I failed. So that's why I want to obviously talk about this and continue working towards improving this. I think another thing that we can do, obviously, is prayer. I think we can humble ourselves and get down on our knees and ask, God for forgiveness and for, kind of treating others poorly. And B, just ask for the strength to do it better next time. And, and again, I think I have a long way to go. I think in some ways I have improved. In some ways I think I've backslided, or I've maybe gotten, and it's the time in my life. I got a 13-year-old and a 9-year-old, homeowner, busy job, busy with sports and coaching and all that stuff. My wife's busy, like crazy, like with so much going on, we are maxed out and like on our emotions, I think are on fumes sometimes, or our ability to control our emotions, I should say. And so I think that plays into it a bit, but it's not a good excuse, certainly. I mean, we still need to treat others the right way. There's 4 words that I kind of like constantly pray for, PKSH, patience, kindness, strength, and humility. Those are four qualities that I think are very, very much important for all humans. And I always constantly praying for more patience, praying to be kinder, praying for the strength to handle those moments and to be strong for others, and the humility to be aware of where I fall short and that I need to lean on God for His strength. And I think we all could benefit from a simple prayer like that: patience, kindness, strength, and humility. So prayer works. Get into the Bible, find some scripture that really speaks to you, and I'd say memorize it. I have a whole bunch of scripture I've memorized over the years, and just kind of going through that, closing my eyes and speaking scripture to myself, whether to start my day or at the end of my day before I go to bed, it really does help. The Word of God is there for us always, and it's very, very powerful. And if you, if you're disciplined enough to read it and to reflect on it regularly, And so it's been a huge win for me. Again, I'm far from perfect at it. I attend a regular Saturday morning men's meeting that I've been part of for many years, and we talk about a lot of these things. And sometimes my wife will be like, "What's that men's group do for you anyway? Because you're still angry or overreact to things." And I'm like, "Babe, I know. We talk about it. It's like, it's not. I'm not gonna just like attend a meeting and like I'm fixed. Like, I want to be like that. I want to get to that point, but I think it's just a very slow process to become better, especially when I think there's a lot of me that's help. And maybe, I don't know, maybe we got to talk this out more with a therapist or something, but maybe there's a big part of me that's like holding on to a lot of these behaviors from my father since I lost him at kind of an early age. When I was, geez, how old was I? It's almost 20 years ago. So I wasn't even 30 years old, and I lost my dad. So that could be part of it too. But, I mean, my brothers we all kind of had that same, we all have that same, I think people really enjoy us and love us because we're like sincere and genuine and real and all these things. But we do overreact, and we do kind of take things too far, much like my father. Both my brothers and I are like that. One of my brothers has passed, but he was like that before he passed. I mean, we're all so much the same in that regard. But none of us are alcoholics, which I think is a huge difference maker. Like, we're like sober and logical and can recognize in the moment when we take it too far, and like can be civil with our spouse and stuff, even though we're angry or maybe have a bad moment. It doesn't escalate past that. So with my dad, you couldn't talk to him. Like, once he was at a certain point in the day, which was probably getting out of work time. He owned his own business, so he would drink at work. He would start drinking every day at lunch and drink at work, and be usually stop somewhere on the way home and have more drinks. And by the time he was home, we'd call it half in the bag, or he referred to himself as half in the bag. And then when he got home, he'd have more to drink, so that I guess he would be fully in the bag. I don't know. So these weird expressions that alcoholics use for themselves, or when talking about other alcoholics. But yeah, he was a big time gin and vodka drinker, mostly gin early on and vodka later on, and always would drink beer too. But gin and vodka were kind of his two main things. So I think I mentioned this a little bit earlier, but yeah, I know I did. But being on the same page with your spouse or significant other, partner, where you're coming from with this, and like realizing again that you're on the same team, talking this out so that you're a united front when it comes to parenting your children, and like how you both react and respond to your kids when they act out of line or make a mistake or have an accident or whatever it is that gets you fired up and angry. And being able to help each other in those tough moments is huge, because it's not just you there. It's and we have a tendency, right, as moms and dads, like when one is being like having a bad day, the other one's usually coming in as like a little bit friendlier, like realizing, okay, like mom's had a really tough day. Her fuse is very short today. Let's not set her off. So like, it's like, or I'll come in and be the gentler, kinder, more forgiving spouse or parent, I should say. Or if I'm probably short and having a bad moment, a bad day, and my wife will realize like daddy's kind of in a crappy mood today. So, let me shield the kids from that. And like, I don't know, it's kind of like you have to kind of read each other and We all have our times and our moments and our days that aren't the best, or moments. I like to call them moments. There's never a bad day. I usually just have maybe moments in a day that are challenging or difficult, and I usually get past them pretty quickly, fortunately. But yeah, trusted friends are really important too. Obviously, coworkers, people that mentors, people that you trust that you can talk with. I mean, the more you can get this out and discuss it and look for feedback, and it is healing, and I think that's where a lot of it comes from, is like just me continuing to find healing and in my the scars that I still carry with me from my childhood, the traumatic things, and realizing that anger, like the self-talk, like what does the yelling really solve? Like in the moment, it's not really solving anything. It's escalating or making things worse. It's scaring other people. It's scaring your children, your spouse, possibly friends, or, I mean, it doesn't ever like look good on you. So, being more in control of your emotions, I think, is just, for me, it's really a goal, and I think it's really the out on the horizon for me, is like, can I be fully in control, or at least 99% of the way there? And again, I know I can't do it on my own. I need God's help. I need my spouse's help. I need my kids' forgiveness. All of these things along the way. But it's, I'm a work in progress for sure. There was a few resources that I wanted to just touch base with you before I have some final thoughts on this. Over the years, we've interviewed Meg Meeker, Dr. Meg Meeker, who's a pediatrician and author. She's amazing. She has several books. I'm just highlighting a few here. Dr. Meg Meeker has a book called Hero, my personal favorite. She has one called Strong Fathers, Strong Daughters, which is Mike's personal favorite. Boys Should Be Boys. You've Got This, Unlocking the Hero Dad Within. Those are just some of her books. She has several books, but she is extraordinary when it comes to being a strong father and being a good parent and being a good spouse. And oh my gosh, she just is so full of wisdom. It's awesome. She's one of our favorite people. Another book by Gary Chapman, the gentleman who wrote the Five Love Languages, is a book called Anger: Taming a Powerful Emotion. I actually have yet to read that, but it's on my list now to read. A book I have read is called Uncommon Manhood by Tony Dungy, the National Football League former coach of the Buccaneers for a time, and then went on to the Colts and became a Super Bowl champion coach. Tony Dungy, he actually attends a church locally, Grace Family Church, where I used to go, and he speaks there often. I've seen him speak there. He's pretty fantastic. So that book has a lot of great insights. And, of course, the Bible, using the Bible as your foundation, the Word of God, as a way to overcome these. The Bible talks a lot about anger and handling your anger, and you can be angry. That's not a sin to be angry. It's how you display your anger. It's how you show it, how you respond to others in that anger, and that's where I need a lot of work. So, what are some of my final thoughts? Well, I have 4 of them. Number 1 is to be honest. Like this podcast today, this episode, I think is just me just unleashing my thoughts and my emotions and being honest. This is largely unscripted. I just wanted to kind of talk from the heart. I had a few little bullet points that make sure I hit on some things, but I wanted to just talk through this myself. That's why there's been some pauses and some ums, and it's because I just wanted to speak openly and honestly And I hope that was helpful to you on the other side. But I think we should all go ahead and give ourselves a letter grade, an A, a B, a C, a D, an F. Where are you right now? And be honest. I mean, I would give myself at this stage of my life probably a D. And that's painful to say, but at 48 years old, I'm giving myself a D as a father managing his emotions and not yelling at his kids for stuff, or yelling at them the wrong way, if you will, or reacting in the wrong way, overreacting. So give yourself a letter grade right now after some self-reflection. And where do you stand? And number two, are you willing to work on it? So if you give yourself if you give yourself an A, I don't know, maybe you're amazing. Maybe you're, maybe you don't have a lot of flaws in this area. Doesn't mean that you're not flawed in other ways, right? But maybe being angry or yelling at others or your children is not something that you need to really work on. And I applaud you. That's fantastic. But be honest with yourself. And are you willing to work on it? Number two, as I talked about before, don't sweat the small stuff. Ultimately, it's not worth it. You don't even remember what you overreacted about. Making mountains out of molehills. I mean, we need to do a better job. I need to do a better job of laughing things off that don't really matter very much. Just laugh it off. You get one shot with your kids, and before you know it, they're going to be grown up and like out of the house. And you're like, my God, that went by quickly. And what do they think of when they think of me? Do they just think of a guy who was always angry and yelling at them? Or do they think of a strong father who was loving and kind and caring? And, I'd much rather them think of me the second way. And walk away, get away from whatever it is that's got you fired up, and breathe. Walk away, breathe if you can. Just separate from the situation, even if it's just for a little while, to kind of get your thoughts, collect your thoughts. Number three, I have to remind yourself of your own childhood failures and feelings before lashing out at your children. So put yourself in your kids' shoes, just briefly, just for a moment. If I could do that more and see myself in them, because I did all the same goofy, silly, brainless stuff that they do sometimes. I did it myself. So I need to remind myself of how I felt when I did those things and how my dad responded and how I didn't like it, or it scared me or made me uncomfortable. Yeah, that's a good one. Lastly, it's teamwork. You and your spouse, your significant other, are in this together. Parenting is hopefully you're not doing this by yourself, because that's a whole different ball of wax. You don't have a companion to do life with and to raise your children. But having a wife is a blessing, and I need to recognize that, and I need to utilize that in those moments and lean on her and talk with her when it's just the two of us privately on improving or how I can get better, or maybe seeking counseling or help outside the family, an unbiased kind of feedback, But we're in this together. So we're a team, a united front. We're not in competition. We're mom and dad, and we need to stick together and help each other through this process. So hopefully that was beneficial to you, and there's some nuggets in there, some things at least for you to contemplate. I know this has been helpful to me. I'll have to go back and listen to it just to see some things that I said that maybe I'm unaware I said. Believe it or not, when you do a podcast like this, you can kind of just go off on a tangent and not realize what it was, or what, I have to go back and just kind of take it all in again, even though I've already just said it all. It's kind of funny, but that's me. Well, I appreciate you listening. I appreciate you sharing, as I said, this episode, hopefully with somebody, a friend or a family member, somebody who could benefit from the things that I've said, the things that I've shared, being open, being honest, not holding back. It's kind of who I am. So I think, again, that's a blessing. And I really don't, I don't shy away from difficult things or difficult emotions. I just, I realize you can't keep it in. You can't bottle it up. You have to let it out. It's the only way you're going to find healing and improvement is by talking about it. So thanks again for being a listener, and we appreciate you so very much. Be sure to give us a rating or a review if you could. We'd love to hear your feedback. And we look forward to another episode next week. Every Wednesday, we release a new episode here on Strong by Design. Take care of yourself. God bless. Thank you so much for listening to the Strong by Design podcast. If you found value in today's episode, please subscribe so that more people can find out about our show. Plus, you don't want to miss any future episodes with the amazing guests and topics we have lined up for you.